Well, hello, friends of God suffering in the human condition. Um, I might look pretty good to you. Well, I might not look very sick. And you might notice that in my announcement I said, not feeling too good this morning. I wasn't talking about myself. That's why I left the subject blank. This just wasn't a good morning for me to leave Janice. For a while, it looked like we might be going to urgent care. Uh, but that's subsided a bit. That she's just been now reacting to the slate of antibiotics that she was given for the starts with an S, the shingles. So, and I may be needed to go pick up some new meds pretty soon. So I just felt it was better to stay home. Now that gives you all a chance, if you haven't gotten Dolores Williams' book, not to be embarrassed in class today. So I've emphasized in the announcement, I expect you to have it by Wednesday. I'll try to hit some of the high spots on the preface and introduction, but I think, Wednesday's reading, if you don't have the book yet, you should get it. This book, Sisters in the Wilderness, The Challenge of Womanist God Talk. Some of you may know, but she goes on to explain anyway that womanist is a variation on feminist, and womanist has to do basically with black women's experience. Obviously, there's some overlap with feminist insofar as we're talking about women, but black theologians who are women have in the past decades, and this is one of the groundbreaking books to do this, has said, while we may appreciate a lot of the insights and laments of feminist theology, we find that often their analyses really don't address our particularities, our history, and there's clearly a unique history of suffering, oppression, dehumanization, particularly, I think we can say particularly among African American and black women in the history, certainly of the United States of America, and it continues. So Dolores Williams wrote this book, or published it about 3 decades ago. Of course, I've known her name, and I've heard the title of the book. I've never read it. And I thought, well, God suffering in the human condition. The human condition and suffering come in many different forms. And one that, if we're going to get particular about it, it seems to me that the history of black women, again, even just in our own country in the last few centuries, is a worthy place to zero in on and learn from. So, and I haven't read tons of womanist theology, here and there some. Never read anything by Dolores Williams at all, maybe an article or two. So I chose this partly selfishly because I really want to have this more deep and sustained encounter with this particular author, this theologian, and the history that she's trying to use as her departure point in her theology. She's now retired. She taught at Union Seminary in downtown New York for, I think that's where she did her PhD as well. In fact, I'm quite sure it is, given stuff that's in her introduction that kind of gives that away. So originally this was published in 1993, and then we have this second edition in 2013. I don't know about the first one. The second one is published by Orbis Books. And, I want to encourage you at this point in your life to start familiarizing yourselves with publishing houses and publishers. I was doing that in college. I had some sense about many theological publishers. Orbis is a Catholic press, and I would say the most, we'll just say leftist and progressive Catholic publisher, published by the fathers and brothers of the Maryknoll what's the word there? Maryknoll Club. That's not order. The order. Orbis. You see this right before the table of contents. Maryknoll or Orbis Publishing talks about itself. Orbis seeks to explore the global dimensions of the Christian faith and mission, to invite dialogue with diverse cultures and religious traditions, and to serve the cause of reconciliation and peace. So, yeah, this is an important book, I think, and I'm really excited to go work with you in it. We've talked about the term womanist. The other term in the subtitle is God Talk, the challenge of womanist God/talk, -talk. That particular phrase, which is essentially what theology is, I mean, almost literally, right? Translation, God, a conversation or discourse about God. But the term was, I think, coined by an earlier feminist theologian, Roman Catholic woman named Rosemary Radford Ruether, RRR. I think she's still alive, certainly long retired. I think she just lives about 90 miles up north of us, east of LA in the Claremont. There's a retirement community up there for pastors, professors, missionaries. We actually have a couple from Point Loma, retired couple, faculty who have retired to it. It's called Pilgrim Place. And so they've probably run into Rosemary Radford Ruether a few times. She published a book, I would say in the late 70s, called Sexism and God Talk. And so the phrase God Talk has gotten some use, I wouldn't say real wide, but we find it here in Dolores Williams' subtitle. I want to talk a little bit about just a few things in the preface and the intro. Of course, me talking about a few things might take a while. I love the way this begins, the preface. I have come to believe that theologians, in their attempt to talk to and to talk about religious communities, ought to give readers some sense of their autobiographies. This can help an audience discern what leads the theologian to do the kind of theology that she does. What has been the character of her faith journey? What lessons has this journey taught? What kind of faith inspires her to continue writing and rewriting, living and reliving theology in a highly secular white and black world, paying little or no attention to what theologians are saying? Way too true. So basically, she's in this opening paragraph, starting with something that around that time, or maybe a little earlier, had become quite important for theological writers, which is, in fact, to name themselves, to locate themselves in their particularity of history, religious tradition, education, experiences, like their present expression or their vocation, like where they do their thing. All of the ethnicity, all of this stuff that kind of names the particularity of the author and helps remind the author and the readers that this is but one voice or one perspective. Obviously, hopefully, this writers read a lot of other people, tried to be taught by others, but there's still something important about that particularity. And I love that in the next paragraph she said, this is a little bit like what I grew up hearing in church called testifying. And that's certainly part of the Nazarene tradition too. We'd have testimony meetings quite often where the whole idea is, folks, stand up one at a time and, talk about your relationship to God and its current status. Talk about, a recent blessing or disappointment. But basically, testifying was a way of praising God within church. And some people, probably in every church, took advantage of this opportunity to, get some airtime, which they probably needed, but it could test people's patience at times. I know we had a couple old brothers and sisters who could talk for a long time. If you've read so far, you'll notice that often Dolores Williams will use the phrase, how far they had come by faith, or we've come this far by faith. And I want to talk about that a little bit in a second. And also this phrase that God helped them make a way out of no way. Both of these are phrases that are, like inherent, endemic to the black church, certainly in America. I don't know about in other parts of the world. But to finish this opening video, I'm going to share with you that when I was in seminary, and I may have told you this before, I'm not sure, but this white boy friend of mine, Bob Fraser, and I, one day when we couldn't drive very far from his condo because the snow was so bad, we decided to finally to test out this Nazarene church that was a black church. We knew that much. We'd driven by it often, wondered if we'd be welcomed, and wondered what kind of service it was. Would it be kind of a typically Nazarene, or would it be more like an American black church experience, which I'd never had directly, but I had some idea about. Well, we went this one Sunday, and it is quite a story, but both of us got embraced by this community, their pastor, their people, and it became my spiritual home for a couple of years during seminary. And in fact, we both ended up in the choir. Yeah, we were both. I think I lasted longer than Bob did on that. But anyway, love that black choir music where there are harmonies that just aren't written on the page, but are so beautiful. So deeply, I think, etched in collective African choral experience. Probably going back to Africa. Just beautiful. Anyway, the choir, we wore robes, and the opening of every Sunday morning service was the choir, I almost want to say sashaying in, kind of coming in one at a time, and singing as we came in down the side and up into the choir loft. And the song that we sang every Sunday, the only one we ever sang in my time there to open things up, was "We've Come This Far by Faith." And, I knew I could not share in the depth of their experience of what it meant for them when they said, "We've come this far by faith." And there was a real sense that it was pretty far. They'd come a long ways. And I couldn't share in that history in their personal or their collective history, but they graciously invited me in to partake as much as I could. So to end this, I'm gonna, it was a whole choir. There's a lot of harmonies, but here's more or less how it went. I sang tenor mostly, and that won't work here. So it was like this. We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in His holy word. It's kind of a minor thing there. He's never failed us yet. Oh. Not gonna turn around. We've come this far by faith. Something like that, and we sang it several times as we moved rather slowly, up into the choir loft. And some of my best experiences. A couple of you that went to the preaching conference, you got to meet my really dear friend, Elmer Gillette from Belize, who was a fellow seminary student and in the choir, and we had so much fun, especially in choir practice. We just had too much fun. But that was a very rich time in my life, and I wanted to share that little song with you, and this has gone pretty long. I'm going to come back and talk some more about Dolores Williams.